What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here in Mike Kaye's apartment, actually. We did a different location today. We're here for the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. Preview pod. Came a little later in the day, but it actually wound up being a good thing because there's some news that just kind of came out that we probably anticipated anyway. I will say I haven't been at as much Eagles availability this week because I've been helping out the Giants, so Mike will have some more stuff in the locker room. But the injury report just came out a little bit ago. It's not good. Lane Johnson is out with a concussion, as Jack starts barking in the background. Jordan Howard is questionable. Alshon Jeffrey is questionable. Nelson Aguilar is questionable. Rudy Ford is out. Nigel Bradham will play. So there's like minimal good news in there. But, I mean, I've been saying all week, whether it's on the podcast or just talking to Mike, that if they don't have Lane Johnson and Jordan Howard, I just don't think they win this game. It seems like people are still optimistic around town. I don't know what your vibe is around the locker room, but when you kind of probably expected this news, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was coming. I do think one of the wide receivers will be available.
Yeah.
Probably leaning more towards Alshon Jeffrey. We talked to Nelson Aguilar in the locker room on Thursday, and he said that he felt better after a day of rest. So a lot of us assumed that he would work on that lighter practice on Friday. I didn't see him. I saw Jeffrey Lurie. I did not see Nelson Aguilar. So that is a problem. I wouldn't play him personally. I know a lot of people have kind of mused that maybe he's being punished a little bit. I don't think that's the case. We'll probably have a really good indication of who's going to play, or if at least one of them is going to play by what they do on Saturday. They could promote, Greg Ward or Rob Davis from the practice
squad. It might make sense to, unless they're both going to play, I guess. It kind of makes sense to call one guy up, right?
I mean, yeah, I agree. But even if both are active, the big thought process going into this game should be, hey, let's take the water wings off JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I don't know what you're missing. Look, we can't watch practice. We don't know if he's falling on his face through half of his routes, but if he's anything like the player that he was in college or in the preseason, they could use that guy. He made a very impressive catch in the fourth quarter last week, that 29-yard gain, showed some athleticism there. Look, Mac Hollins doesn't even know where to line up half the time. So,
not according to Carson Walsh.
Oh, poor Carson Walsh. I mean, it seems like Carson Walsh has as much impact on the passing game as Carson Wentz when his wide receivers can't make catches.
which is little.
Right, exactly. There you go. You got the joke. But yeah, Jordan Howard, I don't think will play. I do think they're a lot more confident in Miles Sanders and Boston Scott than maybe what was put out there last week after last week's loss, where they said they couldn't maintain drives and stuff like that.
Atlanta Jai, they get a full week of too.
Right. I expect him to get a handful of carries. The thing is, the big storyline, though, you brought up Lane Johnson not being around. It's going to be Andre Dillard probably going up against Jadeveon Clowney with a significant amount of snaps. He said today in the locker room that moving from left tackle to right tackle is like being right-handed and writing an essay with your left hand. Yikes. Okay.
I can't write with my left hand. It looks bad. So
see, I'm a lefty, and I know writing with my right hand would be terrible.
It's like shooting with your offhand.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how he's to his, he's never played the position in his career.
Yeah, I mean,
dating back to high school, he's never done it.
A lot of people are getting upset over his quote, but
being honest,
he was being honest. I respect his honesty, and the thing is I actually think this is the right call for a couple of reasons. One, Doug Pederson trusts Jeff Stoutland, as he should. Jeff Stoutland might be the best offensive line coach in the entire league. The reason why you do this, and maybe I'm overthinking it. Oh, me, no way, right? If you have Big V as your starting right tackle, your next line of defense for 4 positions is Matt Pryor. Andre Dillard wouldn't get the cross-training at right tackle because you'd need to prepare Vaitai, so he could only back up left tackle. This way, if you start Dillard and he struggles or gets injured, you have an immediate replacement in Big V. Big V also can play right guard. He can play left tackle. If Jason Kelsey suffers an injury, you move Isaac Seumalo to center, and then you can decide whether you want V or Matt Pryor to play left guard. if Jason Peters has his inevitable one injury a game, you've got Vaitai there to back him up. Plus, on top of that, Vaitai was terrible last week in spot duty. So I think when you look at this group as a whole, I actually think that Andre Dillard's a better run blocker than Vaitai, and I think that could help them after what they saw last week against the Patriots.
While, yes, it's the right decision, that still doesn't leave you with a lot of confidence going into this game. Not. Like, Clowney is a mismatch. You know, there's always been a lot of talk how he doesn't get as many sacks as he'd want, but he's a way more impactful player than, like, the numbers would indicate. I think he has only Brandon Graham has more pressures than him this season among Eagles defensive ends. He's just a pro. Like, so I think the reason why a lot of people have said the Eagles can beat the Seahawks is because they have, like, one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But do the Eagles have the passing offense to, like, take advantage of that? I'm not really sure. Like, so throughout this week, have you still felt like they have a chance to win this game?
I do, in that the Seahawks don't need this game. The Eagles really like, if the Eagles win this game, it's a toss-up between them and Dallas the rest of the way. Think about it this way. If they beat Seattle and New England beats Dallas, which team do you feel better about at that point with the schedule?
Yeah, just based on the Eagles. Yeah,
right. So, like, I think they're due for an upset win. I think last week was very progressive from the standpoint of a defensive mode. They've utilized Jannard Avery very well. I think that the cornerbacks are playing much, much better than the product that was out there during the first 8 weeks. I think in a way you could look at Jalen Mills as Crayvon LeBlanc last year. Like, he's kind of the tone setter, the guy that came in and kind of fixed everything. They're getting Nigel Bradham back, who I don't think is much of an upgrade over Nathan Gary, but if you can have Nathan Gary, Camus out there, or Nigel Bradham, TJ Edwards, and Camus, I think you've got a better look than you probably did before Nigel Bradham went down. You can say what you want about Nate Gary, but he has played well in the passing game for the most part. You know, he's got a lot more experience now. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, their depth isn't that great at linebacker anyway. So anyone you choose is kind of like a pick your poison. I think Camus, now that he's healthy, he looked healthy against the Patriots, you're in better shape. And then the defensive line, Timmy Jernigan, has played a couple of games now, and he's back to in his mold, and Fletcher Cox is ready. So I think the Eagles will be fine from a defensive standpoint. They've just always struggled against Russell Wilson, so I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah, and I know it's probably come up this week a few times. I saw somebody wrote about it. But, like, in retrospect now, do you think the Eagles should have traded for Clowney, like, just knowing how, number one, how good he is, and number two, that it didn't actually cost that much?
Yeah, with hindsight,
yes.
Sure, with hindsight, yeah. Look, Derek Barnett has had some positive moments. Brandon Graham has actually played very, very well.
Defensive end's not as big of a problem as we maybe thought it was going to be.
Right, and I don't think the defensive line is as big of a problem as it was weeks ago. I think losing Malik Jackson really hurt them in those first 8 weeks. They've kind of found ways to kind of get around that by moving Brandon Graham inside, and I really like this Anthony Rush kid based on what I've seen on film. And, it'll be interesting to see how this group morphs, because I think having Timmy Jernigan allows Fletcher Cox to eat. And when Fletcher Cox can eat, he's a pretty hungry guy, and he makes a lot of plays.
Yeah. So was there anything to come out of the locker room this week that kind of stands out outside of, like, these obvious, the concerns being Jordan Howard and Lane Johnson, which has kind of been the through line throughout the week. But has there been anything else that kind of was interesting to you?
I think JJ's been walking around like somebody who's going to be involved, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't think his confidence is neglected by the lack of playing time. Obviously, we'll bring it up.
He had a couple good plays last week.
Yeah, we'll bring it up because Nelson brought it up. But obviously, there was some talk of Nelson possibly having a burner account.
It was so
You dumb. And I text message. We weren't going to address it publicly unless he did. And, really, we never thought it was that. At least I didn't. It didn't sound like
we don't know. We technically don't know if it's him or not him. But it seems pretty insane that somebody would use a burner account with their middle name as the username. So maybe it's a family member, maybe it's somebody who knows them, maybe it's a fan who thought it'd be funny to do this. It was just so obvious what they were doing that maybe Philadelphia is geared to know what when this is coming after the Brian Colangelo fiasco last year. Like there was so much like Twitter detectives that uncovered stuff. I just like for people to like accuse him of something without actually knowing seems pretty ridiculous to me.
Well, and to think
he has his flaws certainly. Like he's a guy that definitely like has had some trouble in this city and handling the pressure of it. But I just don't think this is what happened.
And look, I'm not going to say we know a guy because I've covered guys that have ended up being
bad people off the field.
Off the field. But we are around him pretty much every day during 4 months of the season and training camp. And he's the type of guy, in my experience at least, that will call you out to your face if he has a problem with you. He also just came off a press conference after a game. I was the first person to get to him. He's like, hey, do you have any quick hits for me? Like 2 questions, basically. I asked those 2 questions, then the swarm of media came around, and he answered every single question like a champ. It wouldn't make sense to me. Also, worth noting, I saw that that account favorited a couple of Fire Mike Groh tweets. He loves Mike Groh. Loves Mike Groh.
Well, they did yell at each other at one point last year, but yeah.
Right, but they have a really good relationship.
He has talked really highly of him, yeah.
Yeah, they have a good relationship.
I mean, he did out of all 5 receivers coaches he's played for, Groh did the best job with him. So
right.
And Groh defended him this week, by the way, which he got some flack for the way he phrased it. So I was there on Tuesday, and Mike Groh was basically asked, like, has he regressed since 2017? And Groh, like, staunchly defended him and says, I see the same player, which by any 2 eyes, you could see that he's not the same player that he was 2 years ago. Whatever the reason. Maybe it's because they see him in practice and he's still the same athlete and maybe he's catching him in practice. But when he goes out on Sundays, he's not the same player. But Groh and him have a good relationship.
What I think I think this coaching staff in a lot of ways has failed a lot of the players on the field. They're not putting guys in position. I know there's injuries and there's other circumstances, and honestly, Howie hasn't done a very good job of adjusting mid-season to roster moves and that stuff. But Nelson shouldn't be playing the X, the Y, and the Z receiver. Like, he's just not.
Well, that was Groh's excuse for why the production's been down for him, is that they use him at multiple positions.
Well, you're the one that assigns him multiple positions. Yeah. And you have said, not you, but Mike Groh has said that, it's taken time for JJ to kind of learn other positions. Well, he played all 3 positions in college, so it's not like he's completely inept when it comes to that. I mean, you need to figure out a way. It's mostly terminology, so you've got to figure out a way to get it into the rookie's head. And frankly, he's looked better than Mac Hollins in almost every pass.
As JJ explained it last week, he's like, so if you're the one position, you have 100 plays you need to know. And then if you add another position as a receiver, there's 100 plays. Like, it's a lot. It's more plays. It's like the terminology, like you're saying. It's not like he can physically run out there and run a route from any of those positions. Like,
right.
That there's no. It still blows my mind last week that he played as little as he did.
I just to me, at what point you can talk about the slow build for a guy. Like, look, DJ Chark last year had a pretty mediocre rookie season, and now he's come back and he's been phenomenal. So, I
was even thinking about this just being over at the Giants because, I was just thinking about the NFC East and the young receivers that these young quarterbacks have. So, Darius Slayton kind of has come. He was a 5th-round pick, kind of come out of nowhere. I don't think even the Giants thought he would be as productive. He had 10 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, which only a few rookies in NFL history have ever even done. So Daniel Jones is going to be able to develop with him over the next few years. The Redskins, Dwayne Haskins has Terry McLaurin, who would be the number 1 receiver on the Eagles. The Cowboys have Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, but we can just say Michael Gallup for the sake of this young guy under contract for a while. The Eagles don't trust enough in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to show that he's going to be that guy, and if he's not that guy for the next 3 years, they don't have that guy, and so you're almost hurting Carson Wentz's development by not surrounding him with this talent. Because if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, then and he made it next year for the first time, his first playoff game will come when he's 28 years old because his birthday is December 30th. So if they get a receiver this offseason that finally is good enough, he's still going to only be a rookie. So. They've just done really I know we've said Carson Wentz deserves criticism, but just in terms of even the future and you have to put young players around an expensive quarterback at this point, they just haven't done it. Yeah,
they haven't done a good job of developing the wide receiver position in a really long time.
All, yeah.
I mean,
And this was a problem in the Andy Reid days, by the
right?
way, too.
Yeah,
until Deshaun came in.
Deshaun and Jeremy Maclin kind of broke the mold.
But before that, this was how it was every year. It was Todd Pinkston and James Thrash, Charles Johnson and Reggie Brown. Reggie Brown was actually pretty good.
I was a big Reggie Brown.
He was one that looked like he was going to hit, and then he didn't. Torrance Small, the fact that I didn't remember all these names, it kind of blows my mind right now. But until they traded for Terrell Owens, that flamed out real quick, and then they
drafted Reggie Brown, but Reggie Brown actually got put in a really tough position because remember, he came in the year that T.O. kind of held out, and so he had to immediately be the number one guy, and then by the time,
so for all the excuses Wentz gets, Donovan McNabb was still putting up numbers and winning with bad receivers. I know they had a great defense back then, and the tight ends were different back then. They had solid tight ends, a great offensive line. The Eagles aren't that dissimilar around Carson Wentz right now. The defense isn't as amazing as it was back then.
Right.
But I don't know.
He's got a better tight end.
I just have thought about that a bunch recently. This just feels so much like those days, except the Eagles are paying they just wouldn't pay receivers back then.
Right.
They wouldn't go out and get them. They went out and got them, and they just have done a bad job of integrating and developing them.
Yeah, I think, you're putting in we talk about Mac Hollins all the time. If Mac Hollins is supposed to be a really good special teams ace, and that's his first thought,
just make him
that.
Yeah.
I haven't really even noticed him all that much on special teams.
They haven't played him as much since he became a starter.
Right.
Yeah.
But the whole reason why you drafted him is because he was supposed to be
he made the
that
team
asset.
over Greg Ward.
Yeah. So it'd be one thing if you integrated him the way that the Eagles integrated Rudy Ford into being that third safety role, right? You brought him in as a special teams ace,
Developed him up a little bit.
Let him learn the playbook. But, you could argue Mac Hollins has been in the offense for 3 years, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him.
You also, I think, as we're talking, it's become obvious that Jim Schwartz is better at developing young players than Doug Pederson is.
Absolutely. So there was a quote that you actually got out of him from Gennard Avery where he said...
It might have been a slip of the tongue a little bit, maybe.
Right, and the quote isn't as biting as I probably thought it was initially, but he said when they got Avery, they needed to have a specific game plan for him. What does that remind you of? Golden Tate.
We don't know how to integrate this guy.
Right. It just shows you, Schwartz has a better control and understanding of developing players because he's been around and been a head coach and kind of knows what it's like.
He learned from Bill Belichick.
Right, yeah. He knows what it is to wear that big hat. The hard hat, I guess. But I will say this. What was interesting today, they came out today. Today is Friday. We're recording this on a Friday. Jeff McClain from The Inquirer asked Doug Pederson. He phrased it almost basically like this. Jeff Stoutland's the run game coordinator, so is Mike Groh the passing game coordinator.
What does he do, basically?
Right. And Doug said that's the black and white of it, which is interesting because I think that's the most general description that we've gotten about Groh.
Because then nobody can ever tell us what he does.
Right. And the passing game, and it makes sense. He was a wide receivers coach and a quarterback in college. So if you want to blame him for the passing game, I guess he kind of gave you the opening.
Yeah.
It's weird. I do think a lot of people are calling for Mike Groh's head, but I also think a very good chunk of the problem is Doug Pederson, his in-game adjustments, and then Howie Roseman's inability to supplement the lineup.
Offense, yeah.
So I don't think it's all Mike Groh. I'm not trying to defend Mike Groh, but I think when Howie and Doug evaluate this season and this staff, they might say to themselves, you know what, I could have done a better job of this, and give him kind of the buffer there, maybe before getting demoted or fired.
And I saw something online today with somebody asking if the Eagles should hire Jay Gruden as their next offensive coordinator. The Eagles aren't going to get a Jay Gruden to be their offensive coordinator because a guy like that wants to call the plays, and he's going to come here and he's going to be second to Doug. Doug, if he's going to get a veteran guy, it has to be a guy who is either already retired or is close to it and just wants to kind of be an advisor. Because he
needs a Gary Kubiak.
It would be or I just blanked on the guy. There's an old defensive coordinator. Monty Kiffin. He was kind of hanging around. It was in college, but he was hanging around helping Lane. He was
in Jacksonville too.
Yeah, he was in I think he just needs another adult in the room because it's a lot of inexperienced guys. Besides Jeff Stoutland, who I think has a lot more influence, at least on the running game, than I think people may realize. But maybe he should be the offensive coordinator. I don't know. That would be interesting.
I'm not taking him away from the offensive line, but it's worth a thought.
Yeah, but I don't know, because I don't know if Doug wants to give up that power. Like, he's a guy that has said he doesn't need the personnel power, and it's probably because he knows he can control everything that happens on offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting... I mean, we'll go into that probably quite a bit over the next month, but... Yeah. I mean, a lot of people want to put their finger on one thing, and it's a lot of things. This team has a plethora of things that could really use some fixing.
And it's funny. It's like it's a bunch of small things where if they just did like one of the small things differently, they'd be okay right now. You know,
all the small things.
And so there was this time my brother and I missed our flight. We had to go to California for a funeral. And so we took our time leaving for the airport. We went to a parking lot where we had to drive around for a while. We stopped to get some food. We took our time, and then we didn't realize that we got to the gate too late, and we missed the flight. And it's because if we did any of those small things, so stupid small things we did to like stop to go to the bathroom, we wouldn't have missed the flight. And I just kind of think of that with Howie here, because if he had gotten one more receiver, if he had, just all these things we've talked about over the last few months, like they would have won another game or two.
Remember, everything matters. That's the slogan this year.
That's what they, I mean, they said it like they're.
Unless you have bad wide receivers.
They never like it when we throw stuff back in their faces for some reason, but that's the reality of it.
Fair. So there's a game on Sunday, right? Yeah, this is supposed to be a preview pod.
But it's hard to like just with this team. It's like sometimes hard to just focus on individual games. Sometimes. You know?
I was saying to another writer that like it's really tough to write about a 5-5 team, right? Because it's not like
they're not bad, they're not great.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say: the key to this game, is stopping Russell Wilson.
Yes,
they have got to contain him now. A lot of people don't want Nathan Gary starting at linebacker. In this game, you probably do, just because if you're going to designate a spy, Nathan Gary would be the guy. Yes, that rhymed. I didn't mean to.
You're a poet.
So that's interesting to me. I don't think their passing game is that scary. Russell's been doing some crazy stuff, getting the most out of his weapons.
Well, the receivers are pretty scary.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett is dealing with an injury. DK Metcalf has been terrific. I just think he doesn't match up all that well against the corners because they can be physical. You want Jalen Mills on a corner like that. I mean, on a wide receiver like that. Not that I'm saying DK won't make plays, but I
mean, the corners have been really good for sure.
Yeah, I think if Jalen Mills continues to play at the level that he is,
I think Chris Carson's really good out of the backfield.
Yes. That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
Carson is really good. And this is going to be a rainy day. There's a 90% chance of rain.
90. Oh.
Yeah, and the wind's going to be somewhere around 15 to 20 miles per hour. Wind at that level with rain, it's going to be a sloppy football game.
Kind of like the Buffalo game.
Right. There's going to be showers into the afternoon. It's gonna be soggy.
You need to take a shower. It's perfect.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. If you're really into that, so that's gonna make this a run game first thing, and that could be very difficult for the Eagles if they're not tackling well.
And then offensively, if they don't have Jordan Howard, which they probably won't. So.
Right. I do. Like I said, I do think they have a lot more confidence in their running game. I do think they like their offensive line against the defensive line, even with Dillard going up against Clowney. I think the rest of the group. The Seahawks are talented up front, but they're also like bigger guys. So when you have an athletic offensive line, sometimes you can have an advantage in that way, especially if you're running a lot of screens, which I think they will in this game, given the weather and given the fact that they've got to really rely on Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. I thought Boston Scott showed some stuff last week. At wide receiver, I mean, whatever. The matchup that I really want to see, though, Zack versus Michael Kendricks. They've been using Kendricks as kind of like a zone blitzer. He'll drop into coverage too. But I'm guessing Zach Ertz kind of wants the smoke this week. I really like...
His old buddy?
Yeah, Zach Zach didn't really talk to the media this week. And
really?
I'm wondering... I mean, if I was trying to avoid the media this week, that would probably be
after
the question.
Stephon Gilmore's comments last week too.
Right, yeah, true. I didn't even think about that. But Zach Ertz is going to have a monster game in this one.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know if that's going to make the difference, but I do think that he is gearing up to just rage.
At some point, somebody else besides him has to step up, though.
Right, and I think Dallas Goedert, like, a lot of people can look at the Dallas Goedert numbers and not be impressed.
I think he's been good. Yeah.
I think he's been really good. So,
I mean, he looks like another Zach Ertz out there, honestly.
Yeah,
but he just doesn't get the targets.
It's going to be another tight end game.
Yeah. But I just don't see them winning unless Alshon Jeffrey is Alshon Jeffrey.
Fair enough.
But I guess we can get to predictions. What do you remember what you had for yours?
No, but it's kind of changed now with the...
Well, yeah, with the injuries. But
yeah, I'm going to go with Seahawks 23, Eagles 19. Actually, I think that's what I had. It was either 24, 19, or 23.
Up right now. You had Seahawks 23, Eagles 19.
Oh, okay,
So you're
cool.
changing it to the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Just how they score. That's
I had a little more blowouty. Not really. I mean, Seahawks 23, Eagles 13. I still am just of the mind that I just don't see where the points are coming from in this offense, especially with Howard and Johnson out. So, I don't know what the number is, but they have like a long losing streak against the Seahawks, right? Isn't that
it's 4 straight games.
But it's like dating back like a long time or something, right?
Well, yeah, it's like Chip Kelly era. But
it says the Eagles haven't beat the Seahawks in Philadelphia in 30 years, so that's what it is.
Hey, no time like. But here's the thing: when it's rainy, when your back's against the wall,
live in the rain.
No, it's true. But when it's a rainy game,
Yeah.
it kind of evens things out. When you need a game way more than your opponent, I'm not saying Seattle's going to take this like laying down, but I just think this could be a game where they pull off an upset. They almost pulled off an upset against the Patriots last week, and I actually think the Patriots are a better team than the Seahawks, to be honest with you. So you want to get into some comments?
Yeah, we got a lot actually.
Boom, go for it.
By the way, do you think the Cowboys? What do you think happens with the Cowboys-Patriots game?
I think the Patriots win in a nail biter. I actually think Dallas matches up relatively well.
They do. I think the Cowboys. It's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a really good game actually.
Yeah.
Mr. Ridley says Groh needs to go. Losing Jackson hurt. It should have decimated everything on offense. You're not wrong. Little Penguin. It's a good name. Says Carson. He even has a picture of a penguin on here. Wow. Carson had a bad game this week. But if Aguilar catches that one pass, we're probably not even talking about it anyway. Carson definitely misses it to Deshaun. Marlon Davis says Philly can't do Wentz like they did McNabb. Go out and get this guy legit receivers, and their investment will pay off with Carson. That's what we said. Kaleo Kamekona says supposedly Shelton Gibson, when he was on the team, was good at tracking the ball. LOL. Maybe he should give some advice to Aguilar or something. Shelton Gibson needs to give Aguilar some advice.
I haven't thought
is
about
he still on the Browns practice squad? I don't even know.
I'm sure he is. I hope so.
Ahmad Salman, I want the Eagles to win against Seahawks, but if Howard and Jeffrey don't play, chances are they'll lose the game. Marcel Powell says, here's my issue. I hear a lot of fans say this is the same team Nick Foles had. That's the problem. Other teams got younger, and this team got older.
I disagree that it's the same team, but I do agree that they did get older when they shouldn't have.
Brent Donaldson, there's zero creativity this year, and yes, it's on the old, slow talent and injuries. Doug and Mike Groh have been awful this year.
Yep. Well, I wouldn't say Doug's been awful, but
he's just been inconsistent.
Right, yeah.
Even though over the course of a game, which I think has been one of his biggest problems.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I can't read all of it because there's a lot, but let's see. This misspelling is funny, so I'm going to read it. Tyrone Babb says, every time that Boston Scoot guy touches the ball, I get very scared. I think he's going to fumble the ball. I would cut him. I don't like him on the team. Jeez.
Rough.
Boston Scoot.
Boston Scoot.
It's actually like a good name for like a small running back, I feel like.
Yeah, it would. Well, he scoots. Scoots down the
All right,
field.
Boston Scoot. How did you think he played today? All right, let's
I like
see.
Boston Scoot.
He's a good guy. Cooper Klein. Carson played with Deshaun for one game. Carson is the problem. Wait, that doesn't really make sense. Last year, Nick took the exact same team. Oh, I see what he's saying. Last year, Nick took the exact same team. Carson had the playoffs and won a playoff game. Carson holds the ball too long and misses on basic throws. The team just looks slow and uninterested when he's the QB. He gets way too many passes when, in my opinion, he's the issue. Other than that, you like Carson.
I'll say this. Nick looked terrible against Chicago in that playoff game.
Yeah, he was bad in that
That
game.
he, quote, won.
I mean, he wasn't great in the. He had a couple good throws in the Saints game, but he wasn't great in that one.
Right. They
either.
were good the first two drives, and they lost Brendan
He was
Brooks.
great in the Texans game, and he was great in the Rams game.
Well, I wouldn't say great.
Okay, the Texans game, he was phenomenal.
The Texan
though.
game might be the best regular
season,
game ever had.
besides maybe the 7 touchdown, but that didn't matter. So.
Right, and they were playing a terrible Raiders team. So I guess our vibe is, like, this could be close, but it couldn't. It might not be. Like, I don't know. Like,
if the Eagles win, it'll be close. If they lose, it could be more than close.
Right. I think the Dillard dynamic is what is my biggest concern. Look, I think if Jordan Howard gets cleared for contact Saturday, the Eagles' chances of winning this game go up pretty large.
Yeah, I would at very least make it a closer game. In that direction, yeah.
So, I mean, that'll be worth watching. I don't think he plays for what it's worth, even though he did practice throughout the week.
It is alarming. It's almost on Sunday. It'll be 3 weeks since he has been cleared for contact, which isn't ideal.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. No, not ideal at all. But at least he's been in practice. He knows the game plan. I mean, look, I think what will inevitably happen. There's 3 guys that are questionable: Jordan Howard, Alshon Jeffrey, and Nelson Aguilar. I think Jeffrey plays. I don't think the other 2 do.
All right. Well, we'll end on that note. Check back Sunday. We should have a post-game pod for you. It might sound a little different, but you'll have to find that out on Sunday night. Thanks for listening, guys. Leave some comments and tell us some of your predictions for Sunday. Bye.